The Apartment Gurus podcast is brought to you by Greenlight Equity Group, an apartment acquisitions and holdings firm co-founded by Carl York and Tate Siemer, host of this show. We offer you the opportunity to be an owner of cash-flowing, wealth-growing apartments without the headaches of being a landlord. These assets are recession-resistant, risk-mitigated, offer significant tax advantages, and are a great alternative to the stock market. Ready to check it out? Go to www.investwithgreenlight.com today to book a personal consultation with Carl or Tate. Again, that's investwithgreenlight.com. We look forward to meeting you. Welcome to The Apartment Gurus, where twice a week, host Tate Siemer brings you deep dive interviews with the wisest gurus in the apartment investing industry. These experts are sure to create game-changing value and inspiration designed to catapult your business to the next level. Be sure to reach out to Tate at www.investwithgreenlight.com for access to his investor portal and Calendly link. And now, here is Tate Siemer and the Apartment Gurus.
Welcome, everybody, back. Another episode of the Apartment Gurus coming at you right now. And I'm coming at you, zooming in today from Columbus, Ohio, on the road on a market visit to one of our two primary markets. As a lot of you listeners know, we own property, we being Greenlight, my partner Carl and myself. We own property in Oklahoma City and also in Columbus, Ohio. We love both markets. We love Columbus. And I was here last night for the Columbus-Cincinnati rivalry soccer game, which was super fun. Got to sample some of that culture. And so, yeah, and as you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see in the background, I've got the Columbus skyline behind me. So that's what that is. But very excited today for today's guest. Dan Templin is joining us, and Dan he's a man who's just as comfortable in a suit as he is flipping houses, pouring craft beer, or handing over the keys to an Airbnb. He and his wife's story started at Michigan State University, Southern Michigan. Dan graduated in 2011. His wife followed in 2013. And they not only found love in college, but embarked on a whirlwind adventure of marriage, house flipping, and business building. Sounds like you guys are a power couple. That's awesome. And then just 2 days after his wife graduated from college, they got the keys to a dive bar in Dan's hometown. Is that Kalamazoo, Dan?
Close to Kalamazoo, yep.
Yeah. And what was once a simple watering hole became a hotspot for pizza and craft beer enthusiasts, thanks to a sprinkle of that Templin magic. But why stop at one successful business? They took the funds from their house flip and turned it into an empire of real estate that includes 7 Airbnbs, multifamily rentals, commercial spaces, and more. From managing a men's suit store to running a myriad of businesses, Dan's journey is anything but ordinary. And just really, lots of wisdom in terms of real estate investing. His approach is all about fun, family, and flair for turning the everyday into something extraordinary. And look, Dan, just excited to have you on the show and excited to hear all about, your story, how you got to where you are and how you and your wife have been the power couple entrepreneurial force that you've been. So welcome to the show. Super glad to have you.
Thank you, Tate, and thank you for that great introduction. I definitely appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. Very excited to have you here. So, that was a great intro, and you've obviously had a very exciting journey. Tell us a little bit more. Give us a little more color into kind of, maybe starting off from the college years and what your inspirations were back then and how you got led to where you are today.
Absolutely. So going into college, I never really saw myself working a normal 9-to-5. I come from a long line of entrepreneurs. My grandfather built a 1,000-acre lake. You flooded a river and then developed the entire thing.
Wow.
And so I saw the tail end of that. And my father and mother, both entrepreneurs as well. My mother had a carpet shop, and then my father had feed and seed stores, which is pretty much a thing of the past now, but they kind of cashed both those in and built a golf course. And so when I was growing up, I definitely learned the love of working for yourself and working hard. And so I definitely have entrepreneurship in my blood. And the first chance that I basically saw to start working for myself, I did. And I did that through real estate, and which was flipping a house we bought for $15,000. And then after we sold that, we had enough money to buy our first business, with the long end goal of, getting into real estate. And I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do in real estate. Growing up with my father being a developer and my grandfather being a developer, that's kind of always what I saw. But developers go through huge ups and downs. And I wanted to find, what really is a strong position to be in over the long run. And I fell in love with apartments. So that's pretty much why I'm here.
Did anybody in your family own apartments, or did anybody own apartments? I mean, how'd that get on your radar?
So my parents had one apartment. They basically house hacked before, it was popular to house hack. So instead of selling the house they moved out of, they started renting it out, and they hated it. So they, after a year, they got rid of it. So I didn't really have any influences as far as real estate goes until one of my peers that was in the same grade as me started just buying as many rentals as he could get his hands on. And that really sparked my interest. And then I really dove deep into self-development and into researching apartments. And I haven't done anything in the multifamily as large as, what you're in, but we do have a 5-plex. We have multiple 2-plexes, and we have a lot of single families too.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Talk a little bit about your partnership with your wife and how that all started, and, how you guys work together. Cause I think it I'm a single guy. So, and I've never been married, but so I don't know from experience that this is true, but I think there's kind of like two types of couples out there, generally speaking. Couples that like just stay out of each other's business as far as work goes and let each other do their thing. And then another type of couple that's kind of all in on each other and their dreams, and like what's mine is yours as far as your vision and your dreams go. It sounds like you guys are a good case of the latter situation. So talk a little bit about that, if you would.
So one of my favorite quotes is from Jim Rohn, and it's something along the lines of, if you work hard at your job, you can make a living, but if you work hard on yourself, you can become extremely wealthy, or something along those lines. And I think that that's true just in a marriage in general. So when you really work on the foundation of your marriage, that flows into how you parent, it flows into the businesses that you have together. And so making sure that you're on the same base and that you both are seeing yourselves going in the same direction towards the same goals, I think that's super important for people who not only are married, but work together as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Did you guys, is she kind of naturally wired as a entrepreneur like you, or, how did that all come about?
In the beginning, absolutely not. She didn't grow up in the same environment that I did. Both her parents worked jobs, and that's kind of what she always saw herself doing. But now she's to a point where it's second nature to her. It's just naturally the way that we are. And I don't think we would have it any other way.
Yeah. So did you kind of like mentor her early on and bring her into the entrepreneur?
I wouldn't say I mentored her. I mean, we figured it out together. we're both pretty much fresh right out of college when we started our first business. And it was a long process of figuring out how to own a business, honestly, because school and college just basically teaches you how to be a good employee. It doesn't teach you how to be a good investor. It doesn't teach you how to be a good boss. It doesn't teach you how to be a good business owner. And there's a lot of things that go into that can only come with experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let's jump right into something here that I think's fascinating. You specialize in helping aspiring investors getting through their first deal from start to stabilization. And you also help seasoned multifamily investors amplify their profits by implementing Airbnbs inside a small portion of their units to diversify and increase their income on their existing assets, which is something that we have looked at doing with one of our properties here in Columbus, as a matter of fact, furnishing the units. So we've got a 43 unit Class A building, and we furnished 4 of the units. And we have those on short-term leases. We're not doing nightly rentals with those, but we are doing short-term leases. We have looked at doing nightly rentals with those as well. And that's still a possibility that's in play. So, talk about how that works and like how you help people do that.
Sure. So, it's 2 separate things that I do. And so, but how it came about, I can guess they happen pretty much the same way. It starts with, people seeing you hustling, people seeing you doing things, and they're like, I'm going to reach out to him and see, if he can help me. I kind of want to do something like that. And that is for people, that want to get into their first rental on a small scale. And so it just naturally kind of flowed. Like I had enough people coming to me to where I was like, this could be another whole business on its own. And after helping a couple people with that, we had people who have a lot of apartments, and they came to me and they said, is it possible to rent out 1 or 2 of, my units? Would I make more money? And after talking with them and walking them through it, at the end of the process, I was like, I think there's a lot of people out there that probably would consider maybe throwing 1 or 2 of their units that have a lot of multifamily out there. And so that was another organic way that we just continue to grow, I guess. It always is kind of funny because all of my best ideas just kind of come to me. I don't actually, come up with them. It's just naturally, organically happens. So
how did this one come about? How did this idea come up for you? It was just people.
A mutual acquaintance that knew that I was doing Airbnbs, and they saw that in our 5-plex, we took 2 of our units and put them on Airbnb, and the revenue on those is 3 times what we would get market rent long term. And we were just discussing it, and they're like, "Well, can you do that with mine?" And we're like, "Well, yeah, we can." And after going through the process and kind of figuring out, I was like, well, I could do this on scale for people. We have a great management company, and it could literally be like a white glove service for people. So we would go in and on the first one, we just kind of told them what they needed to do and how to do it. And it's a lot of work setting up. As you said, you furnished, did you say 4 that you furnished out?
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. And then keeping up with the management of it as well. It's not like just set it and forget it. You have to constantly make sure that your guests are being taken care of. If there's any issues that come up, you need to have, repair people out there right away. I know in long-term rentals, you always want to take good care of your tenants and get things fixed right away. But it's different when it's a short-term rental, because if they have a sink that's not working, you have to have someone out there right away. It can't wait till tomorrow.
That's right. Yeah,
exactly.
Totally.
Yeah. And that's just a headache that a lot of people operating at a high level aren't willing to deal with.
Yeah. So so just to be clear, you're offering management, nightly rental management to these.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
That is, yeah.
Understood. Very cool. So what are the keys to success with this? I mean, like as an owner, we have 650 units. A couple of our communities have vacancy issues, I guess you could say, where the vacancy is just not as high as we'd like it to be. Our revenue is not exactly as high as we'd like it to be. So it would behoove us to look at this model, right? And
sure,
at renting nightly. What are the pitfalls? And give me some pros and cons here.
So there's definitely some pitfalls. You have to make sure that you're not violating anything with your financing. So for example, if you use a certain type of loan, maybe they prohibit that. Another pitfall is you have to make sure that there are no regulations in place that make it so that you can't per the city. So you don't want to have an illegal Airbnb running, out of your apartment complexes. You want to make sure you're doing everything on the up and up. Some other downsides, insurance costs go up. So short-term rentals, the insurance cost is much higher when you have transients in and out. But there really are downsides to everything. There's a lot of upsides to doing it as well. You have professional cleaners coming in anywhere from 1 to 3 times a week per unit, depending on your turnover. You've got higher cash flow. That's what everyone loves the most. And it's kind of an interesting thing because the value of multifamily real estate is based off of the net operating income, right? So if you can boost up your net operating income, things can get a little interesting. On an apartment that normally brings in $1,500, if it's bringing in $4,000, that can really pad your bottom line. Sure. But that is something that I obviously would recommend disclosing when you're selling it. Like, yeah, this is great revenue on a couple of these, but they're being run as short-term rentals.
Yeah. As an owner, it seems to me like the hardest part of this would be finding you, like finding a reliable, professional, get her done, really, like I said, reliable, right? Like that's the biggest thing.
Sure.
A manager to manage this for us. And a typical property manager, right? Whether it's class C or class A or B, whatever, they're not necessarily geared up for nightly rental management. In fact,
absolutely,
probably most of the time they're not. That now there are management companies out there that specialize just in nightly rentals, right? So maybe that's a possibility, but I would say that the owners that you've connected with are probably, hopefully they feel lucky. It seems like they are lucky because, I've never been approached by somebody like you and said, "Hey, let me manage your units for you as nightlies." Like, that's something new, and it's not like you can just silly go out there and wave a magic wand and make that happen. So,
right.
That's kind of the quandary that we found ourselves in, is the management piece.
Okay. Yep. And something when you say that out loud resonates with me, that for a while I saw a lot of popularity around rental arbitrage, which I'm not sure if you've run into that, but that's where people will go and try and rent a unit from a landlord, and then they just pay market rent, but then they turn around and put it on Airbnb. And to me, that's a little bit problematic because you don't know if they have the proper insurance in place. You don't know, you lose control, right? Yeah. And they're not invested in making sure that property is being managed properly. So I feel like the more control that you can have over it, the better.
Yeah. Makes total sense. So what kind of what are give me like a sample delta between say, a monthly 1-year lease rent rate versus a nightly rate?
Sure. So I can actually give you an example of a duplex that I own that we switched over from long-term rentals to short-term rentals. When we took it over, it was at market rent, and they were going for $1,250 per floor. And so what does that come to? $2,500 a month. And between the 2 units last year, we grossed $103,000. So
Wow.
I'm not quite sure what that
Twice
comes
that.
to
I think
monthly, but
if I'm doing that in my head right, it's twice as much, because you were about 20. You said you were about 25.
right. Yeah.
So
that's more than twice. That's
yeah, it is more than twice. That's awesome.
sorry, I didn't have that number off the top of my head.
No,
but
that's okay. I put you on the spot.
2,500,
Put you on the spot.
25,000 plus. So yeah, that was about 30,000. So it a little over 3 times the revenue, but there are more expenses too. So like we spent probably about $20,000 on cleaning. So you take that away and you're still up probably $30,000 to $40,000, and it's market dependent too, right?
Sure.
One thing that a lot of people are hesitant to start Airbnbs in places where they don't really view them as vacation destinations.
Yeah.
But that can honestly be a good thing for you, because if there's hotels in your area, people are traveling in your area. They are seeing family, they're doing business, whatever it is. And there's less competition in the Airbnb world, not in the major markets, not in the vacation markets. And so I feel like the higher multiples are possible actually counterintuitively in the non-vacation markets.
Interesting. That's fascinating. So what you look for hotels, you look for, probably rental car agencies. Like what is are there telltale signs of like a hot market versus something that's not so exciting?
I would say hospitals and airports, and really just like you said, hotels, business districts, that type of thing are great candidates, especially if you want a high quality guests. So you want to be really specific on who you're trying to attract, and that sets you up for success, because then you can kind of tailor your apartments towards being attractive to the type of people that you want. If you want people that are business professionals, you throw a desk in there and give them a little office area, and knowing your market. If you're next to a hospital, knowing that you're going to have traveling nurses coming through, that gives you an idea of, who your clientele is going to be and how you can position yourself in the market. There are a lot of tools out there too to tell the success of a unit, like AirDNA. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they basically pull all the data from the back end of hotels and Airbnb and Vrbo, and they can tell you with pretty good accuracy if you put a 2-bedroom, 1-bath in this specific area within a pretty close margin to exactly how much revenue you're going to have off of that. So if someone came to us and they were in a spot that was in the middle of nowhere, and we looked at it and it didn't make sense, we wouldn't recommend putting an Airbnb in there, because there's more expenses to run an Airbnb, and if we don't think that it's going to substantially improve cash flow, it's not worth doing. So
yeah, fascinating. What are are there tricks to boosting income? Are there, with apartments, you can add on a utility reimbursement charge, and you can charge for parking, you can charge for washers and dryers, you can charge for dogs and pets, right? Like,
sure.
What about with Airbnb?
So it's been a little interesting lately, because they're kind of changing the dynamic of how pricing is shown. Originally, when you went to Airbnb, and depending what market you're in, they're still doing this. It will show, like if you're looking at a map, it will show, all the dots of the available units, and it will say $150. But then you click on it and it shows you your total, and it's $100 cleaning fee,
right?
And then $150 for the night, and then taxes, and then Airbnb's fee, and it ends up being a much higher number. So there's a lot of ways that you can tweak the system so that you can be more attractive to people. You can charge just like you said, pet fees, like you can do in long-term rentals, you can do that with Airbnbs, and people are happy to pay it because when people travel, a lot of people like bringing their pets, and a lot of hotels are not pet friendly. And that's an extra easy way to get, $60 extra out of a stay. And then you can even share some of that with your cleaning crew. You could give them, say, 20 more bucks because it's a little bit more work to make sure you vacuum off the couch and whatnot. And there are a lot of little things like that you can do. I've seen people charge linen fees. There's a whole list of fees that you can charge on Airbnb, but I really like to keep it as simple as possible and be as transparent as possible.
I like it. What do you do for coffee in your Airbnbs? I'm just curious. Do you do
So
Keurigs?
that's been a long that we do not. We've had so many people walk away with pods because we tried Keurigs and it just wasn't working out very well. Yeah. So what we ended up doing is we just put in a classic drip coffee machine, and we supply Folgers coffee. And if they, we find that people are very, very picky about their coffee. So yeah, for sure. Even if we try to put in a high quality type of coffee, they're going to have a preference towards a certain brand. They're going to have a preference between, a cold press, or they want a certain type of machine. So yeah. That was definitely a learning experience.
And then, I'm somebody, I use Airbnb. I'm sitting in an Airbnb right now in Columbus.
Oh, nice.
I'm here for 3 nights. So, and I use them all the time. And it is interesting how the difference, the kind of the scale or the spectrum, if you will, on how nice they are, how well stocked they are, how well kept they are, how well clean they are. Little things like walking into your bedroom and your towel and your washcloth and some nice little knickknack or something is sitting on the bed, right? Mm-hmm. Like things like that. Any other little tricks like that you do? Like what do you do for shampoo and body wash and all that stuff?
Sure. So we use Tresemme for body wash and soap. So we use a nice name brand. We use Charmin Ultra Soft toilet paper.
Nice.
I've been to so many Airbnbs, and you can tell that somebody just randomly threw, this thing on Airbnb and they have no idea what they're doing. But you have to make sure that you're taking care of your guests and that you're giving them an experience that you would want as a guest. So like you said, we put mints out. I know it's stupid. It's probably not stupid, but it seems silly. But hotels have been doing that for years. And the reason they do it is because people like it. They like feeling like they're being taken care of. They having towels even. I've been to Airbnbs that say they can sleep and there's 4 towels in the whole house. We put 3 towels per guest. And there you go. I feel like that should be a minimum. Mm-hmm. There's just a lot of silly things that you run across, and you really just want to make sure that you're doing a good job and giving a good value, and it will reward you greatly.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. I love it. Well, with this expertise that you've developed in managing Airbnbs, what are your plans? Like what's next for you? You work with a lot of apartment owners. So you've got an inside lane, so to speak, on the industry and maybe even on some deals. So, what are your thoughts on what you want to do next? And, do you have big goals, long-term goals, or, how do you guys do that?
Yeah. So once we figured out that putting Airbnbs into large, or not even doesn't have to be large, but once we figured that out, that we could put them in complexes, and that some owners would be interested in doing that, we decided that we wanted to kind of double down on that and take it seriously and kind of build that out. And so that's one of the reasons that I've been really working on getting the word out that we do that, so that we can really build that business and help a lot of people increase their cash flows and amplify that. We also, on a couple other side notes, we're building out a laundromat. We are adding more Airbnbs for ourselves. And we're actually buying single family homes right now too. We just got one closed out. And so we're going to start looking for more of those. Those are kind of I would say our safe investment it just kind of makes us feel good to have stabilized mid-price homes in our portfolio. Having it balanced is something that I feel is very important. So,
yeah, awesome. How curious what with you and your wife, like how do you split up roles? Like what do you do? What does she do inside of the partnership?
Sure. So that actually is going to be changing a little bit. As of today was the first day that we decided that we're pulling our kids out of the school system and we started homeschooling them.
Oh, wow.
So my wife has stepped up to that role, and today was the first day of doing that.
Wow.
And my wife, it's a big undertaking. And so she's still going to take care of the finances. She's always done the books, and she's kind of the rock that the business is based on. And then I'm out there, finding the deals and doing the daily grind. So she'll still be there doing the finances, and I'll take over a couple of her other responsibilities.
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, just to kind of round things out, this has been an awesome conversation, and hopefully listeners have been inspired and been given some good new ideas. I've often said that if I was not in multifamily, I would buy 20 or 30 Airbnbs and call it a day, because to me, it's a great model. It's not going anywhere. It doesn't seem to be anyway. I know that the industry has been suffering a little bit here in the economic downturn, but nonetheless, I think, especially when we go back into a positive cycle, I just think it's an incredible proposition and just makes so much sense. So I think what you're doing is really, really smart. And it sounds like you guys are just, you're opportunists in all the best ways, right? You're taking advantage of what your community has in the way of assets, and you're acquiring them. So curious, just to kind of, like I said, just to kind of round things out. You've been around a lot of let's say colleagues, right? Like peers in the business, apartment building owners in particular, and operators. So you've seen, you've seen the good ones, you've seen probably the bad ones, and everything in between. For somebody like me and the listener who, may be looking at being, a lead sponsor, a lead GP, an owner operator, if you will. What are the things that you see that people do well that contribute to success? And what mistakes do you see? No,
I would say that
big question. I'm putting you on the spot, Dan.
That's all right. I would say that things that are mistakes with property management is just focusing on the cash flow and forgetting that you have actual humans living there. You get up to tons and tons of units. I think once you lose touch with that, your property and your revenue is going to start to suffer. I mean, we've all been to apartments where we know that management is not managing it well. Let's say things are falling apart. It's not, paint isn't being upkept. And honestly, that creates the best opportunities for people like you to step in, fix things, and make some money. So everything that you look for in a deal pretty much are the mistakes that property managers are making. I don't know if that makes sense, but and
it makes
things
sense.
that they're doing well. I think that it's really nice when they when you see a real sense of community between residents. If you should be able to pull up to where people live and just randomly ask them, like, hey, do you like living here? And be confident that they're going to say yes. I think that should definitely be a goal of anyone that's owning real estate.
That's an awesome goal. That's really, really an awesome goal. Yeah. Well, Well, let's leave it right there. I think that's just an awesome place to leave it, as we remember that in this business, we are in service to our residents, our tenants, whatever, however you want to refer to them. I interviewed somebody recently who doesn't call them residents or tenants. He calls them members of the community.
Oh, nice.
And I thought that was pretty cool. But
that is cool.
But yeah, I mean, this is a people business and you're serving people. I mean, with us, we've got 650 units. That's 650 families or individuals that are reliant on us to be good landlords, right? To be good owner operators and provide safe, clean, quiet properties for people to thrive and live inside. So I think that's an awesome reminder. Awesome stuff. Dan, any last thoughts for the listeners before we sign off here?
If you want to find me, you can shoot me a message on Instagram at the businessman Dan. And that's pretty much it. I just want to thank you for having me on again. It was great.
The businessman Dan is your
yes, sir.
Your Instagram handle. Okay. So listeners, that's where you can find Dan Templin, who's been my guest here on the Apartment Gurus today. Dan, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. Really appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Thanks for having me.
You betcha. You betcha. Listeners, thank you. Hopefully you got a lot out of this, and now you have something new, a new way of profiting on properties that you can even maybe throw into a business model when you're underwriting. Get creative, right? So on that, we will see you guys on the next episode. Take care, everybody.
This has been the Apartment Gurus with Tate Siemer. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. To contact Tate, go to www.investwithgreenlight.com for access to his investor portal and Calendly link. He loves to hear from you and thanks you for being a valued listener. Just a reminder that you are the guru. See you on the next episode of the Apartment Gurus.